All right. Are we live, Rob? We are live. Great. Everybody, welcome to Buzz Life. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Michael Hemphill. I am the creator and host of the TV show Buzz that airs Wednesday nights on Blue Ridge PBS, where in each episode we feature the great work that nonprofit organizations do and the marketing professionals affiliated with the American Advertising Federation of Roanoke who donate their time and talent helping these nonprofits achieve more buzz. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of you being here at the spot on Kirk in downtown Roanoke. If you're tuning in to our live stream on Facebook or YouTube, you have my man Rob Orthwine to thank. So everybody, please give it up for Rob. Very nice. Now, my co-host, Kiana Price Marshall, could not be here tonight. And unfortunately for you, I was planning on flying solo here. However, a few days ago, I happened to be leaving a local coffee shop and ran into a friend of mine who is a former illustrious TV personality herself. But also, for whatever reason, way back in 2019, she, for some reason, said yes when I asked her if she would be the co-host of my pilot episode of my TV show Buzz, when we featured the nonprofit Healing Strides of Virginia. Well, we got to talking about Buzz Life. She thought it was a pretty cool idea, said, hey, if ever you need any help, let me know. I said, well, actually, I need help tonight. And not only that, but to kind of put a little bow on all of this, one of the nonprofits that we had already scheduled to be here tonight is Healing Strides of Virginia. So a beautiful full circle moment. Please welcome to the stage, Becky Freemall.
Welcome. Thank you, Michael. Is this sucker on? Check, check, check.
Sucker is on, yes.
Should I bam it? Is this thing on? These days I'm doing marketing and growth strategies for companies around the country, and I find myself in the virtual space, as I like to call it, the Hollywood squares. And you don't have a lot of human contact when you have clients all everywhere but here. Yep. And so when you said, hey, do you want to do the thing? I'm like, oh my gosh, I can touch you like we're human beings. This is so exciting. And no matter if I'm in news or doing marketing strategies or anything in between, the one thing that's always been a huge part of my heart are nonprofits. Yep. I'm on chairs and I'm a board chair for one, and I'm on just the board for a few others. And
they do everything.
I love it. They do. Nonprofits, you say, hey, you're hired to do X. That really means you're going to do A through Z. And it's not that you ask them, people are just passionate about it, and they will do anything to make that thing happen and lift and elevate it. So what you're doing, by the way, Michael, I promise you, he did not pay me for this, but it is amazing the work you do. It is not. Did you notice I haven't picked them up yet?
Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's get rocking and rolling, shall we? All right. Well, we're going to introduce, as you said, Healing Strides of Virginia. Right. Betsy Osborne, program director, will be up on stage here in a moment. We've got the musical guest who I was just listening to around the corner when I was in the green room. Shout out Bruce Bryan. I love the green room and I love the green couch. It's awesome. Keith Allesi, and absolutely amazing. And then, of course, let's not forget, and I'm going to look at this, Josh Temke, which is not spelled Temke at all, with, I will tell you, Apple Ridge Farms.
Excellent. Great show tonight. As I mentioned, way back in 2019, as we were first launching Buzz, we wanted to feature a nonprofit that had a great visual story to tell, and also one that needed some marketing help. Well, Healing Strides of Virginia provides horse therapy for people of all ages and struggles, from children who are suffering from developmental issues all the way up to veterans who have PTSD. So you've got horses, you've got children, and you've got veterans. So check, check, check for a great TV show. And It was, thanks to the great work that they do. So you can watch that whole episode on our YouTube channel at Buzz for Good. But my favorite clip involved you interviewing a veteran who works for Healing Strides, but also receives some really life-saving help from Healing Strides. And here it is.
Well, so I understand you were a client, and now you're a horse owner and an employee, and you've kind of evolved.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's been a huge transition for me in my life. I was stationed at Fort Campbell in Kentucky. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, major depressive disorder, intermittent explosive disorder, you name it.
Do you find yourself kind of becoming those labels almost just because they place so many labels on you?
Yeah, PTSD that's who you are. Well, I had 4 suicide attempts. I've been in a coma twice. When you get out, you're like, well, I don't know what to do anymore.
Who am I?
Yeah, like I can't tell my wife, baby, you mean the world to me. Like you're everything that I've ever wanted. And you lose that way to just come up and give your kid a hug and embrace him and pull him tight and tell him Daddy loves you more than anything. What he sees is Dad coming in, maybe going to the refrigerator, grabbing a beer and going downstairs in the basement and watching TV. Not because he doesn't want to be around, because he doesn't know how to talk anymore or share his feelings, because it's like this right here.
Did you ever imagine that an animal of any kind, a horse, would be what got you to where you are today?
I was sitting right there in that spot, and it was the anniversary of a pretty traumatic event for me. And Bounder come up to me, and he drops his head right on my shoulder, and he breathes out, telling me it's gonna be okay. And if I start crying and I get angry, it's gonna be okay. For some reason, the good Lord decided that I needed to be here, and I think I found what it is. If we help one person, or let someone know that they matter, for nothing else but, they are who they are, and they're a person, and God loves them, and so do I.
Wow.
Yeah, still gets me.
It does. And, if you might notice, I was petting that horse the entire time. I need that horse right now. It got me through that interview.
Yeah.
Gonna make me ugly cry on TV for crying out loud.
Well, we get our guest up
here. Let's do that. Betsy Osborne with Healing Strides. Welcome her and her amazing nonprofit. There's your microphone, and I really did. Like during that interview, I've been through some doozies in the 24, 25 years I was in news. That was definitely one that ranks pretty high. And there's nothing wrong really with, actually there's nothing wrong at all with emotions and getting sad. But at the same token, I'm like, I need to let this man tell his story, and I just need to keep petting this horse so I can do that and not break down.
Oh, it can be.
You are.
It can be challenging to hold that space and allow someone to go through those processes, because we are so geared, especially those of us in the nonprofit world, to help and to want to to fix what we can, and so to be willing to let that process be only what they need and to be organic it can be tough. And nobody, I say this with horses, I don't think anybody leaves interaction with a horse, whether you're a clinician, a client, a volunteer, whatever it is, without being impacted by the interaction.
What is it about horses when you talk about that from the medical perspective and the emotional perspective? Why all the questions, are they so healing?
I think it's a really wonderful question. It's probably more complicated than simply just saying that horses can teach us so much, but it's kind of true. Horses can teach us so much about them, but about ourselves, about how we interact with the world, with each other. The idea that anybody that's willing to want to go into a relationship with a horse, go into a partnership with a horse and say, hey, I'm going to care about you. I'm going to want to learn how you communicate, how I need to communicate with you. How are you going to understand my intentions? Horses are, animals that live in the moment. They live and they are authentic. They are true. We kind of joke at the barn. We say horses are really, really good at being horses. and it's true. They're really good at being horses. And so if we can respect that and we can understand that and not try and make it into, a situation that it's not, there's a lot of research that's happening, that has happened. I mean, even from the physical pieces of it, horses, helping new things fire in our brains and all sorts of stuff, to being able to recognize human expressions.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff going on that kind of scientific side of it. But at the same time, being there and seeing it, it's not magic. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's if you're willing to do it, it's a pretty powerful thing.
Well, it does seem a little on the magical side. I know it's not when it comes to like the story of Jason, the veteran who really been struggling with some PTSD, but on the kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, the children who have some developmental disabilities, there is a more of a physical, I guess, medical side of things from, my experience working with you all. Share about that, and perhaps a particularly inspiring story with a child that you've worked with.
Sure. So there's lots of benefits to working with horses. And the kind of, again, medical, physical piece of it is very much folded into that kind of larger piece of partnering and building a relationship. But a lot of people that want to ride horses, it's the reason that riding horses can be so unique for individuals with a wide range of physical challenges is that it's not everybody does it. Not everybody does it. It's kind of a special activity to be able to do. And so it obviously has benefits in core strength and balance and proprioception, but in combination with all of that, there's also skill building. So you're not just working on certain medical type goals. And to be clear, therapeutic riding is not a medical service. It's very it's therapeutic versus a clinical service. But there are so many benefits that can happen from that. Probably one of my favorite stories was a young man. I have so many. I'll go with this one. A young man, mainly because Jason was reminding me of labels, who was in a lesson one day and got very, very, very frustrated. He didn't have a huge amount of strength in his legs and was just so frustrated that the horse wouldn't listen to him. We were giving him a little more independence, and he was calling the horse stubborn and slow, and he thought the horse didn't like him and all these different things. And his volunteer turned to him and said, I wonder how that horse feels if he heard you say those things, if he understood what you were saying. And it really was very impactful for that young man who kind of realized he was putting these labels on this horse that, weren't fair, that, he himself had been labeled before. And so once he was kind of able to realize that, they had a much more successful relationship, and he was able to be a bit more understanding of, what this horse needs to be able to do the things that they want to do together.
Mental health is big. It always has been. I think it has only grown since the pandemic. Talk about the fact that I feel so in my soul that counseling and therapy is so important for so many people. You don't have to be a veteran, a veteran or PTSD or some big traumatic situation to benefit from what you guys do.
Absolutely. Our mission is centered around individuals with personal challenges. Sometimes those challenges are lifelong challenges, and sometimes they're very temporary challenges. We're having a hard time. All of us, I think, have gone through times in our life where we're just simply having a hard time. And so we have a range of services that it's kind of the broad term is equine assisted services. But within that, we have, as I mentioned, sort of the more therapeutic, experiential services, horseback riding, things like that. And then we also have some, coaching, life coaching, skill building type things. And there is actual clinical services that people can do with counseling and psychotherapy. But because we have that range, really, if you're willing to step into the arena and you're interested in engaging and partnering with a horse to create that change, anybody really can benefit from it.
I love it.
Wonderful. Well, Betsy Osborne, Program Director at Healing Strides of Virginia, thank you so much for coming on to Buzz Live and
Thank
sharing
you.
this. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very nice.
All right, we can go.
All right, and with that, I would like to invite up our musical guest, which we try to have a musical guest affiliated with a nonprofit every week. This musical guest is a real treat. We are currently working on an episode of the TV show Buzz featuring the spot on Kirk. And we got to interview a variety of performers who have kind of helped get their launch from this very stage. And for me personally, the most inspiring one has been Keith Allesi, who used this stage to hone an act that he has taken all over the world called Tomatoes Tried to Kill Me, but banjos saved my life. It's with that, Keith Allesi, ladies and gentlemen.
The banjo, the most frustrating of the stringed instruments, difficult to play, almost impossible to keep in tune. It and the people who play it are subject to constant mockery, ridicule, and rehashed corny jokes. They say you can tell who a person really is by looking in their closets. I had 52 banjos in mine. Everybody has a story. I had a story. I'm neither a musician nor an actor. I hadn't been on stage since senior year in high school, 1972. I live in the next block, and one night I stumbled into the spot on Kirk, and I ran into Bryan, and that, plus some encouragement from some friends to tell my true life story, led me to workshopping a show that ultimately became Tomatoes Tried to Kill Me, but Banjos Saved My Life. It's been performed in front of over 40,000 people all across Canada, the US, England. We've sold out runs off Broadway, a couple runs at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland, been to Australia. And since day one, we donated 100% of our gate to charity. And when I leave here tomorrow, I'll be driving up to Edmonton, Alberta, where we will raise our $1 millionth for cancer charities. So how does that happen? Well, I was born into an Italian household, and tomatoes were a constant. They were always on the table. They were always growing out back. My father, Tullio, was born in Italy, migrated to Canada. He met my mother, whose family was Calabria. They also came through Canada, but came into the States. So at birth, I became a first-generation Canadian and a first-generation American. And those of us who grew up on the border in the 60s, we had a real luxury. 4 television stations, yep. Now that was before there were remote controls. Youngest kid in the room was a remote control. And we'd watch all those shows of those idyllic families of the 60s, you know, the ones the women are always wearing high heels and pearls, cooking breakfast for their husbands, are always in suits. And I'd watch those shows and I'd say, who are these people? That wasn't the household I was growing up in. But there was a family that did draw me in. The Clampetts, the Beverly Hillbillies, and a man named Jed. That song, it drew me in. Didn't make sense. I didn't grow up with banjos ringing in my ears. There was something about the song. The banjo, it cuts through the clutter. People are always smiling when it's being played. Interestingly, some of the best banjo players of our time, Steve Martin, Bela Fleck, Tony Trischka, they all attribute their interest in the banjo to that song, Ballad of Jed Clampett. Well, I wanted to learn to play, so I went out and got my first inexpensive banjo. Here's what it sounded like. The banjo, different kinds of woods, different kinds of metals. Some have plastic heads, some have skid heads. All these materials expand and contract at differing rates, making it a frustrating instrument to play. People pick up this instrument, they get frustrated, and they quit. Well, I too quit. And into the closet, my first banjo would go. And there it remained for over 40 years. I went into the world of business. I was a turnaround guy. I was a lover of lost causes, and I hitched my wagon to a series of troubled companies. I quickly rose through the ranks. At 27 years old, I was the chief financial officer of a billion-dollar company in Chicago. Oh, that's true. Hi, I'm Keith. I'm a recovering executive. Now, this work's stressful. The hours are long. Through this whole time, I maintain my love of the banjo, my love of the tomatoes. Tomatoes aren't always loving me back. And I'd take the banjo out of the closet every now and then. I wouldn't make any progress. Well, in 1997, I took a chance on a company in Virginia Beach. I became a CEO of a tax service, Jackson Hewitt Tax Service. And we became the leading gaining stock in the country that year. We outperformed a little company called Yahoo. I retired. I was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, TV interviews, magazine covers. And I rewarded myself by buying a very expensive banjo built by Jeff Stelling of Afton Mountain, Virginia. Not this one, but this is a banjo I brought tonight that was made by Jeff right over the mountain there. He's retired now. And I pick it up, and I couldn't get any better. Well, as a kid, I'd been a collector. So I said, well, I'm going to get to him one of these days. I kept collecting banjos and filling the closet up. So fast forward 10 years, now I'm running a company up in Canada. Stock prices up, profits are up, board of directors happy, everybody's happy. I'm not happy because I'm stressing out, and those tomatoes started to give me real problems. They were giving me acid reflux, and I was combating it by consuming massive quantities of antacids. Well, I had reached a point in life where many people do, where you realize if you're going to get to something, you better get to now. At the time, I was 61 years old. I had a closet full of banjos, couldn't play them, and I'd gotten inspired to play because I'd started to attend banjo camp. It's as geeky as it sounds. 200 musicians descend upon a college campus for a weekend to try to play. Well, it inspired me so much, I decided to quit my job. So I quit my job as the CEO of a company up in Edmonton, Alberta, on a Monday morning. And 2 weeks to the day later, I was told I had a 50% chance of living a year. Stage 3B esophageal cancer. 5-year survivability probability, 14%. Well, I was in shock. I was scared to death. So what was I going to do? Well, I decided to control what I could, which was my attitude, and I threw myself into trying to learn to play the banjo. It represented hope, a future, and life, and that embarked me upon a journey that brings me to this stage today. Now, the banjo is a very complicated instrument in terms of its history. If you go to Appomattox, Virginia, you're going to see a historical marker there claiming some white gentleman from Appomattox is the inventor of the banjo. Well, that's not true. It's an African instrument. And this instrument I've got tonight is very much like what the African instrument would have been. It's a gourd. This has got a modern neck on it, but the original gourd banjos would have had a stick with catgut strings. But when you hear this instrument, you'll hear the roots of blues music as well. Yeah, we're in tune. Can you hear those slides? Well, here in Virginia, we're lucky. It's an area where there's a rich musical heritage, and certainly the banjo plays a big part of it. We're right here at the Crooked Road, which celebrates the heritage of the people that settled the area. It was largely Scott-Irish populations. And this, of course, is a more modern banjo, an old-time banjo. And when I hear this instrument played in Southwest Virginia, I hear the vestigial sounds of bagpipes. Going back to those Irish days. I'm going to play a song that's a British song, and many of you have heard this song. It's called Shady Grove, and there's hundreds of versions of this. But when I hear it, I hear those bagpipes. Bagpipes in there. Yep. Now, part of my journey took me along the Crooked Road to an iconic venue called the Floyd Country Store. Those of you who've been up there know that on Sundays they have jams. And I joined a circle of musicians there, and that's where I ultimately find healing, both emotional and physical healing. The circle of musicians is very welcoming. They bring anybody in. I was intimidated to go to the jams up there, but when I walked into my first jam, I realized everybody had a big smile on their face. A third of the people were out of tune, a third of them were out of time, a third of them were playing something different than the rest, but they were all having a great time. And they accepted me into that circle. And it was there that the mysteries of the music finally unraveled for me. I finally made those connections in a supportive group of musicians. And I end up writing a story about all that. That's the gist of an 80-minute show that we've been doing. And the most inspiring thing about it for me has been there isn't a show that we do that somebody doesn't come out of the audience with their own story. Everybody's got a story. And places like the spot on Kirk is how those stories can get told, because who else would have allowed me on a stage to write, workshop, and ultimately tell that story? And you shouldn't have to wait for a cancer diagnosis to get your banjos out of your closet. Everybody's got something in their closet. And, I grew up in a generation where you had to be great at everything. But what I recognized at the Floyd Country Store is just playing was enough. It was good enough. I was good enough. And I encourage people, I challenge people at the end of every show I say, what's in your closet? It sounds like a credit card commercial, huh? Yeah. What do you have in your closet? And why is it in there? And why aren't you doing something with it? Why don't you take it out? Why don't you do good with it? This has been the journey of a lifetime. When I was a CEO, if I did well, people made money. That was okay. I taught university. You'd see a light bulb or two go off in the room. That was cool. But this has been an adventure. And next Thursday, when I open up in Edmonton, not only will that be our $1 millionth, but to the day, that'll be my 9th anniversary. So, knock on wood. We're going to keep doing this show as long as we can. Hopefully, we can bring it here. Like we've done it a couple times here at the Spot with the larger theaters in town. I'm become David Hasselhoff. My audience is in Scotland. I live a block away. But we'll get one of these local theaters, bring it in, and maybe raise some money for some of these worthy charities, because every show we designate a charity we're raising money for, and we always keep it local. So,
wonderful.
Thank you.
Keith Allesi. Thank you so much. What a wonderful story. Now, Keith is one of the many people who make the Spot on Kirk so fantastic. One of the main ones is Bruce C. Bryan, who was the founder and board president of the Spot on Kirk. He is also the founder and president of the Roanoke marketing agency 5 Points Creative. And for his regular segment, we have the No Budget Nonprofit Marketing Minute that Bruce is serving up back there at the bar. Bruce, take it away.
Hey, nonprofit friends, not everyone donates to your organization for the same reason. You may believe that they're deeply connected to your cause and to give to help further your work, and some do. But others donate for different reasons. Some want to gain notoriety. Some want to attend the next big function you have. Some have their arms twisted by a big client or their boss. And some are looking for marketing, coverage, promotion, or notoriety. Some want to be seen as a community partner and a generous person or company. When taken on their own, none of these are bad reasons for someone to give. It's okay for people to give to you for a wide range of motives. What's not okay is for your nonprofit to give a cookie cutter story to everyone you talk with. No, no, no. Instead, start with uncovering what those donors need. Then shift your story to match up with the reason why people are wanting to give to you. Now you're playing the matching game. And winning at that means winning for your organization.
Oh, thank you so much, Bruce.
Very nice, Bruce.
And let me tell you, storytelling is what connects people, absolutely. And I just want to bring up our next guest, Apple Ridge Farms, which works to transform the life of communities of underserved children, families through engagement, and unparalleled education, cultural, and outdoor experiences.
All right, we have one quick video that'll better highlight the great work that Apple Ridge Farm does. Rob, take it away.
Apple Ridge Farm is a nonprofit organization in Roanoke, Virginia, dedicated to transforming the lives of our community's underserved children and families through engagement in unparalleled educational, cultural, and outdoor experiences. Founded in 1978 by educator and visionary Peter Lewis, Apple Ridge has always been a safe haven for our most at-risk youth from its humble beginnings. Over the last 45 years, Apple Ridge Farm has served over 80,000 youth. The organization has become a cornerstone for closing the educational achievement gap and sowing the seeds of potential in our children. Always free of charge to our students and their families, Apple Ridge Farm is perhaps best known for its academic summer camp. Apple Ridge also operates programs both at the farm and in the school system. We offer environmental education field trips, team building experiences like our Get Outside program, and in-school programming like our mentoring program Aspire Mindsets and our 21st Century After-School programming. We believe that academic support and success are essential components in positively building self-esteem in our youth. With stronger self-esteem, our children will believe in the possibility that they can reach their dreams. Our job is to see them as the amazing seeds of potential that they are, and nurture them until they can see that in themselves. Thank you for coming along with us in our mission to help kids grow.
All right,
Well, so
Josh Temke, Executive Director of Apple Ridge Farms. Thank you for coming up, Josh.
All right, Josh.
Thank you very much. Come on in.
Welcome. Grab a seat, grab a mic.
Do all the things. Enjoy. Get
I
comfortable.
will do all the things.
So, Josh, describe, for starters, kind of the typical child that comes to Apple Ridge Farm.
Sure, yeah. They come in many shapes and colors, but most of our students come from the northwest quadrant of Roanoke City, a good percentage of the. All of our students live under 200% of the federal poverty guideline. So we screen students through the registration process at the beginning of each year for academic summer camp. We'll have roughly 400 kids apply for anywhere between 120 and 150 spots, depending on the year. And so of those kids, we accept them on a first come, first served basis with a couple qualifiers, most of the most important one being family income. So all of our families live under 200% of that federal poverty guideline. So about 75% of our students' families take home less than $10,999 a year. So these are kids that couldn't afford to go to a summer camp on their own.
These are kids whose lives basically revolve around Northwest Roanoke, just staying within that kind of that general
Their neighborhood.
jurisdiction.
That's
Yeah, the
it.
Very
neighborhood.
much so. Yeah, Roanoke's such an outdoor community, but we forget sometimes that there's a giant population of our neighbors that don't get to experience that. For lack of a better word, they're stuck in the city. Not that it's not a wonderful city to be stuck in, but there's plenty to see out there. And so when they come up to the farm, it's kind of a new world for them. So
what's that like?
They're not used to that environment at all.
What is the reaction of a child when they come to Apple Ridge Farms, especially for that first time? I just can imagine the awe.
It is. It's shock and awe, for sure. A lot of fear at first,
okay.
to be honest. They tend to be scared of the environment because it's so different from what they're used to. And we use that to our advantage programmatically. I mean, it's great for us to get them outside of their comfort zone in a world that they've never been in, for them to explore a part of themselves that they probably can't do down here in Roanoke. So I think of, when I think of that first kid coming to camp, I think of a little girl that we just called Auntie. This was a couple years ago. Honest to God, today I still don't know her name. We just called her Auntie because she looked like someone's aunt. She came off the bus. It was a changeover week, so we had some new kids, and I was sitting on my golf cart as I do, watching the kids come down off the bus, and this girl walked off in like a Sunday dress, stockings, and black penny loafers. And so she stood out like a sore thumb. She also had an overnight bag and a sleeping bag. We're at day camp, so she was very, very lost. We took her aside, got her some clothes, got her fixed up, but she just wasn't prepared for the environment that she was going into. I saw her a couple days later into camp, sitting at the edge of one of the lunch tables, so I went over and talked to her and checked in just to make sure she was feeling comfortable and feeling at home now. And I said, "Hey, Auntie, how's it been?" And she said, "This is the best summer camp I've ever been to." And I was surprised by that, because most of our students don't get to go to other summer camps. But if their parents are diligent enough, there are some scholarships available to some of the other local camps in Southwest Virginia. So she was fortunate enough to have a parent that was, focused to do that. And so I asked her what she loved about Apple Ridge so much, thinking it was going to be, the outdoor space, the pool, the high ropes, the low ropes, the basketball, baseball, whatever.
Yeah.
My typical answer. And what she said really shocked me, which was, she said, I've never been in a place that looks like this, full of people that look like me. And that really hit home. And honestly, initially it did not hit home because my first thought was, no one looked like you when you first got here. But as it settled in, I started to realize that there's an entire population of kids in our city that don't feel at home in a place that's extraordinary. And we feel at Apple Ridge that it's our responsibility to do that. So that's the goal. That's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get that feeling of, I can't believe this place has been waiting for me to come.
Yeah. And ultimately your goal is not just to provide like this short-term experience for these children, but really some kind of lifelong opportunity that maybe this experience kind of opens up for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we want to see our kids grow for sure. And we want to see them come back if we can. And we've got, there's been many wonderful Apple Ridge success stories. And we always say that you can pick an Apple Ridge kid out of a crowd. And I've tested it, and it's pretty accurate. They tend to have charisma about them, a sense of confidence, a polite attitude that stands them apart from their peers. We're very old-fashioned up there. It's yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Mr. Lewis would have it no other way. So we kind of instill that in our kids. And, that and the other character developing things we do throughout academic summer camp tends to come home with them. And we see changes in them over time, and they kind of continue to morph further and further into that Apple Ridge kid. And when I say Apple Ridge kid, I mean our director of programs, Jordan Bell. He's our shining example of what an Apple Ridge kid was. He came to Apple Ridge Farm 25 years ago at the age of 9 as a camper, and he never left. He started as a camper, eventually became a junior counselor, then he became a summer camp teacher, then he was a summer camp coordinator, and today he's our full-time director of programs, running all of our programs at the farm. And so he's just one of examples of many folks that we've been able to have up there at our time.
And I know Jordan well, and not only is he a great example and leader at Apple Ridge Farms, but throughout the city of Roanoke.
Absolutely.
So wonderful. Well, Josh Timke, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
all the work that you're doing at Apple Ridge Farms. Let's hear it one more time for Josh and Apple Ridge Farms. And at this point, I want to get all of our guests up here on stage with us to close us out tonight. Get on up here.
Come on up, come on up. We have to thank Spot on Kirk, of course, and Bruce Bryan, and our sponsors of tonight's show, which is the Friends of the Blue Ridge, which they work to build better community throughout the Blue Ridge region like all of you guys do.
Next week, we're back here next week, we will have Jacqueline Nunciato of Huddle Up Moms talking about the new diaper bank that they're creating here in Roanoke, as well as Abby Hamilton of United Way of Virginia's Blue Ridge with musical guest, the Alma Ensemble, an all-women trio performing music just by women. So, thank you again for everyone being here tonight. To close us out, Keith, could you give us a tune? All right. Thanks so much for being here, everybody.
Thank you.